The last person that you want to have political disagreement with is the person that you share a bed with. Trust me, I know. Loving someone who is my political polar opposite is not easy. But the personal work that I have done on this has certainly informed and shaped my work as a psychologist and an executive life coach with my clients, especially couples and family members who are estranged. And this issue of political polarization, it is certainly not something just for politicians. It is hitting many families and relationships hard. Here's a statistic. 50% of adults in the United States are estranged from a close family member. And in 40% of those cases, the reason is political differences. So this is big. I'd like to share with you some of the game changers that I've learned from having to work through this process myself, personally and professionally. And here's the first one. The first game changer is you don't have to agree on everything to have a strong relationship, but here's what you do have to do. Learn how to disagree better. Political discussions, especially disagreements, tend to provoke strong emotion. And when we get overwhelmed with emotion, what we call getting triggered these days, your rational brain shuts down. The primitive brain literally takes over. It secretes chemicals that shut down the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that can think rationally, be pro-social, problem solve. It goes offline. So how do you get it back online? Well, it's not going to come from thinking or trying to do something reasonable because this just can't process it. What it usually involves is doing some kind of physical grounding technique that helps your emotions calm enough that it's safe for this to come back online. And these are things that will be unique to you, that work for you. But here's some common ones. You might briefly break eye contact for a moment, look down. You might take a sip of water. If you're standing, you might feel your feet connected to the ground. If you're sitting, put both feet on the ground and maybe put the palms of your hands lightly pressing into the tops of your thighs. So out of these many different ways, you find the ones that work for you, that help you calm enough to be able to think. Or if you're encountering someone, you're not trying to reason when you know that's not going to be helping. So basically, you could put this in a little simple formula. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it goes like this. Feelings first, solutions second. So if you're going to learn how to disagree without wrecking your relationship, what's that going to look like? It's just basic things that you're willing to do because you love that person, they matter to you, and you want the relationship to work and to continue. So it involves things like meeting halfway on some things, finding a middle ground in a way that doesn't feel lose-lose to either one of you, making trade-offs, those kinds of things that allow you to move forward in spite of your differences. It doesn't have to be great. What would be the greatest, the best, would be that you agree. But what would be satisfactory that doesn't feel lose-lose to you? It's those kinds of adjustments that you're making that make the difference. I'll give you a brief personal example of how my husband and I used these approaches to help ourselves as the election came up. At one point, my husband said, "I won't vote for president. I'll vote down ballot, but I will not vote." That was big for him to say that. He's never not voted. That let me know how much I matter to him, because all along my feeling has been politics matter more to you than I do. Well, that extension that he made, and it was genuine, let me know that I was wrong. I do matter. And yet he was doing it in kind of a trade-off way. I still want to vote down ballot. And of course, it moved me enough that I also offered to not vote for president. And of course, that needed to be done to keep this in balance. And even interestingly, he even proposed we needed a trust but verify feature to this agreement so that we voted side by side. We showed each other our ballots after we voted, turned them in, and then went out to a nice dinner together, not discussing anything about the voting. So that's an example. One of my clients did just the opposite. She and her husband felt so strongly that you need to exercise your right to vote that ended up being their agreement. I don't like how you're voting, but it's important that you be able to and that I be able to, and that's how they handled it. None of this is easy, but you can see how it allows you to somehow move forward in spite of your differences. The last game changer, and it's a big one, because it's so powerful in how it can help us move out of that gridlock you can get in when you're taking an either-or position. Either-or thinking is, it's limiting. There's more than one way to solve a problem, to approach something. But when you're locked into just it's got to be this way or that way, it doesn't work very well in complex situations, especially those involving human beings. If you can adopt both and thinking, you may find that there's some creative ways to do creative problem solving and find a third way to approach something. And it's something that's satisfactory to both of you. Here's some examples, and I actually found these very difficult to do when I first started working with these. It's so worth it. But here's a few examples. Either or thinking would say, either over here, I am deeply offended by some of my husband's political beliefs, and I know that he treats me with respect and consideration. He is not offensive. Those are two opposites that I had to wrestle with to find a third way that could hold a container that was big enough to hold both of those and come up with some way of moving forward in spite of our disagreement. Another example would be I can be deeply upset about some of my husband's political beliefs, and at the same time, I know that I love him. I love this guy. Here's a third one. I can believe that my husband supports some very bad political positions or people. I also know he is a good person. Those two things feel very opposite. It's what we call cognitive dissonance in psychology. To hold those two things, that it's kind of like, no, it's got to be one or the other, or somehow you have to wrestle with those. And like I said, it's not easy. It is so worth it. It can put you on the path to a third way that's even better than your original two positions. That's why it's worth pursuing. So, in summary, make disagreeing better your goal as opposed to trying to agree on everything. And one of the ways you can do that is feelings first, solutions second. Learn how to manage your emotions so that you can work rationally with your partner. Managing emotions is a skill set that you can learn, just like any skill, like driving a car. It's well worth investing in. It puts you in a position to find some of those solutions. And what are the solutions going to look like? They're going to be something like accommodating the differences between you and your partner, managing them, working with them in some way. And I really hope you'll explore both and thinking. It's such a powerful tool that can get you out of the gridlock of either or thinking and moving forward together. And that's really the whole point, isn't it? Because life is just too short to let things like this, political disagreements, disagreements in general, drive a wedge between you and the people you love, the people you care most about. Trust me, I know.